Love, we've all heard of it, seen it, may even have felt it once before. The happily ever afters or young love straight out of a movie. And there isn't just one form of love either. It can be romantic, but there's also the love shared between close friends or for your family. However, I'm here to discuss the romantic form of love, the kind of love that has countless stories attributed to it, where star-crossed lovers are plentiful and the seemingly impossible Disney love stories flourish. One of the most common experiences of romantic love we have is a crush. But what happens when that crush never fades, and instead turn into all-consuming thoughts, impatiently waiting for that one text from them, or overanalyzing their every action? This feeling isn't a crush. It's an obsessive state of mind known as limerence, and the person you think you're in love with is your limerent object, or your LO. So I'm here to argue, you're not crazy in love, you're limerent, and knowing the difference is crucial to taking back your life. I'll be using the definition of limerence as first coined by psychologist Dorothy Tennov in her book Love and Limerence, The Experience of Being in Love. Tennov defines limerence as a feeling of being in love, but unique in that it has control over our thought processes, and its power places the achievement of that limerent experience above other relationships. Dorothy Tennov identified the following basic components of limerence: intrusive thinking about your LO, acute longing for reciprocation, interpretation of LO's actions with respect to the probability of reciprocation, inability to act limerently to more than one person at a time, acute sensitivity to any of LO's actions, physical pain, extreme euphoria, and feelings akin to depression. Limerence is described as an addiction. You're addicted to the idea of the person, the way they make you feel in your head, and you're constantly chasing that high of validation. It's why it's so difficult to let go of limerence, because any small action can be a trigger that you analyze in hopes of it being some secret sign from your LO. So how is limerence different from a crush? Well, limerence is like a crush on steroids. Romer Tenov describes it like being in love, often impeding day-to-day functioning, with intrusive thoughts of your LO and basing your self-worth on their actions. The key factor of limerence is that it prioritizes a fantasy, and limerence will often get frustrated with their LO if they don't fit their idealized version, whereas with a normal crush, you prioritize learning about the person and the real experience of being with them. This leads into my next point. What role do attachment styles play? Attachment styles were first discussed in John Bowlby's attachment style theory, studying the behaviors of babies who are separated from their primary caregivers for different amounts of time. Jeremy Holmes described the attachment styles as secure or insecure, the latter being further subdivided into avoidant, ambivalent, and disorganized. When you look into the attachment style most susceptible to limerence, Hazen and Shaver called out anxious ambivalence and their ability to easily fall in love, their constant need for reassurance and validation from their partner, emotional highs and lows, and an extreme need for reciprocation. This is actually why most limerents unconsciously seek out emotionally and or physically unavailable LOs. They never threaten the perfect fantasy the limerent created, nor do they have to put in real effort to establish a meaningful relationship. I bring up attachment styles because we can't discuss limerence without discussing the effects of childhood neglect and whether or not you received consistent love from your primary caregivers. Essentially, the way you received love as a child explains how you give love in your adult romantic and platonic relationships. Moreover, those who experience childhood neglect and trauma are much more likely to fall into limerence as a coping mechanism to experience love that isn't actually there. So, now that we have identified this seemingly taboo and unknown feeling, one big question remains. Is it possible for limerence to ever become true love? The thing about limerence is that it relies on the uncertainty of a relationship. However, the ultimate and often impossible end goal for limerence is to be in a relationship with the LO. However, it's rare, since many LOs tend to be strangers, married individuals, or simply emotionally and or physically unavailable. The reality is that if your LO reciprocates their affections, you must now work to accept their flaws and the likelihood of them not fitting into your fantasy. This is why understanding attachment styles is crucial, so you can avoid entrenching your idolization and instead develop genuine connections. Interestingly, when limerents finally enter a secure relationship, they often don't feel intense sparks and mistakenly believe they're not in love. But it's because they're used to chasing the high of a push and pull relationship that a connection that naturally develops suddenly feels boring or lacking. Hopefully, with this information, naming and acknowledging these experiences becomes the first step to letting go of limerence. Understanding the patterns, root cause, and the overall effects on your life and potential or current relationships is key to breaking the cycle of limerence and finally living for yourself.